Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week based on my mood. So it's a really great reading week, so let's just jump right in and I'll tell you all about it. The first thing that I finished was a recommendation from my very dear friend Leo from A Little Book Life. I'll link his channel below. Leo and I both have this passion for literary fiction, and we're reading Anita Brookner's oeuvre together. We read some Proust together, and some other things here and there. But we differ. We take a detour when it comes to kind of like our relaxation reading. So I love mysteries and he loves fantasy. And it's not to say that I don't like fantasy, but I don't like it in the way that he does, like he's like full in. So he recommended something to me because it has aspects that I like from a historical book perspective, a historical fiction perspective. And this book is A Brightness Long Ago by Gavriel. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I was so hoping that I would love it. It's an ensemble take. It's a book it's fantasy, but even that aspect feels strange to me in the sense that there's no magical system, there's no fantastical elements. From what I can see, the only thing that's fantasy really is that it's a made-up place and time. But that's really the only thing that puts it in that genre, in my perspective. It feels like Renaissance Italy, and so we have different factions that are vying for political control, and we have like these secret machinations and political dealings, which I love. I do really, really enjoy that. That's probably some of my favorite things about Dune itself, by Frank Herbert, which I absolutely adored. And there were some really strong female characters, which also makes me very happy. So it had all the elements. What I felt that it just kind of lacked focus because it shifted from these different characters and gave all of their perspectives. And it would go back and then go forward, that I kind of became intermeshed in it, but I couldn't get a sense of like, who am I rooting for? Who's the protagonist? Like how do I center myself in this world? It was exquisitely written, and like I said, I enjoyed it, but I expected to love it. So it was a little sad that I didn't love it. And I sent Leo a Voxer about that earlier, and I still have to listen to his message back. Oh, I hope he still reads with me. I think he will. So the next book I read, I did just love. This is a rereading for me. This is Palestine Volume 1 by Joe Sacco, Palestine, A Nation Occupied. This was written in the early mid-90s, about a time when Joe Sacco went to Palestine. So he was in Israel, and he wanted to visit the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and to understand. Now, he does kind of, I would say, graphic novel, comic style reportage. And he wants to experience and see how Palestinians were living then and get stories and understand. So he's going from that perspective, but he's staying in Israel. So you're getting both sides of the divide here. I think it's brilliant. I am going to look for the second volume because there's two. So there are some editions you can find that are the bind up of both volumes. It's heartbreaking. It's very poignant. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating because he's really good at just painting what happened, what people are saying, what's happening in very feels objective. Now you could say because he's going to understand the Palestinian situation that he's already biased. I would say though that he recognizes his privilege as he's many times. I think I mentioned I did a video where I talked about the book haul where I got this from, and he talks about how he's staying in Israel, but going for day trips into Palestine to kind of experience this. And many times he was very happy to be going back into a place that he was safer because of all of the ways that Israel has constructed their safety and prioritized that, and created an apartheid state where the Palestinians are separated and governed and controlled. So it's very powerful. I highly recommend it. So the next book is very different, though nonfiction as well. This came up in my audio holds from my library. And I have seen a couple people talk about this, and they said it was an interesting read, specifically Kazen of Always Doing. I'll put a link to her channel below. And I think Robert from Barter Hordes also read this and was interested in it. I kept hearing that it was like The Five by Hallie Rubenholt, which I thought was remarkable, which is about really focusing the narrative of the Jack the Ripper on his 5 victims and thinking about what their lives really could have been like. So knowing that as kind of a context setting, I was like, oh, well, this sounds great. I want to read that. So I jumped into this. This is a very detailed nonfiction book. It's called, I guess I should mention the name. It's Stranger in Shogun City, A Japanese Woman and Her World by Amy Stanley. This is about the city of Edo. It's now Tokyo, but this is in the early 19th century. And it's very detailed nonfiction, very detailed. But kind of similar to my challenges with A Brightness long ago, this book also tends to splinter in too many different ways for me to really feel connected to it in the way that I had hoped. I really wanted more of her and her worldview, but what I wanted is not what I got. And so I have to kind of look at the book with what was provided. There's a lot of richness in here. What Amy Stanley was able to do was to find the papers and the writings of her brother and being able to piece together the story from there. Our main character the main person we're following, she had a really difficult life. She had 3 divorces and then decided that she was going to leave home and move to Edo, which was the big city, and ended up being in absolute dire poverty because of it. She ended up making a love match and marrying a man who was a horrible match for her. She ended up going into kind of domestic service with this magistrate of the city. And all along, we kind of meet these different characters and different understanding of what life was like in Edo at the time. And looming on the horizon is an American ship that's on its way over. It's because I went in expecting more of a narrative nonfiction read, a la The Five. I think I kept waiting for that, and it definitely dampened my experience of the book. I still think the book is very good, incredibly informative, very thoughtful, but a little stiff. Not the flowy narrative nonfiction that I was hoping for, I guess is the best way to say it. But it's still recommended if you're interested in this period, interested in nonfiction books about women and their experiences, even though this kind of goes in many different ways. Or if you're interested in Japanese history, this would be a great thing as well. Then I had the complete opposite. Now, of course, this is a fiction book. This is one of the NetGalleys that is just come out. I mentioned it last week. It's The Bohemians by Jasmin Darznik. This is, I got this is one of my NetGalley books, so I'm happily kind of still on that train. This is a phenomenal look at San Francisco in 1918. At a time that mirrors so much of what we're going through now. It's a little terrifying. So we have things like corrupt politicians that are callously lying, knowing that they're doing so, but no one is there to stop them. We have the Spanish flu, which it seems to be eradicated, only to rear back up, and the havoc that it throws the city into, and the decimation, the economic decimation from it. We have anti-Asian sentiment because of the poverty and because of the way that the politicians are looking for scapegoats for the poverty and the dire conditions. You're right, so many things are all, the inflection points are all ringing true to where we are right now, a century later. And then at the heart of this, we have, you know that I love a woman artist. This is Dorothea Lange. And so we're seeing Dorothea as this young woman who has left her home on the East Coast and gone out on her own boldly. She has a limp from polio that she had when she was young. And because of being very sick at a very young age, she's determined that she's going to live her life as she wants, and she's not going to let time pass her by. So she has left the East Coast. She's come to San Francisco, and she's going to make her way. So we get a little bit about her and her early days, because what we know of Dorothea Lange, or what many of us know of Dorothea Lange, are those famous Depression era Dust Bowl photos of the woman with her children and the forlorn look on her face as she's kind of staring out, and just amazing, gorgeous images. Well, we get to see how she became that Dorothea, how she became interested in that, and how she established herself in the city with the help of her assistant, who was half Asian. And that woman was Caroline Lee. And so we just are learning so much. It's rich, the way she talks about San Francisco. Even I learned some things about San Francisco that I had never known, and I love San Francisco history. So this was just a really great story. It's everything I want from historical fiction, which is imagining, setting the right context, setting the right setting, giving us that vibe and that feel, and helping us understand the trajectory of the main person that we're following. So that's what I like about it, and she did that with spades. So be on the lookout for that. That just released. And then I literally absorbed this last night. I couldn't stop reading it. This is the 5th of the Cat Holloway mystery series. This is also a NetGalley. I just got it approved, and I just binged it. This is called Death at the Crystal Palace, and this is by Jennifer Ashley. So I've talked about the Cat Holloway series before, and I'm getting a little pickier about my mystery series, mostly because I'm reading so many of them that I'm starting to see what makes one special over the others. And for this, it's Cat Holloway, who's just a fantastic character. That we're in Victorian London, and Cat is a cook. But she's not just any cook. She's an exceptional cook for kind of a upper middle class family. The family is a little boring, a little blah, but there's a niece of this family that she has become very, very close friend, and that is Cynthia. And Cynthia is just a great character. They have to maintain some distance because of the hierarchy, but they have an affection and affinity for each other, and they help each other out in many cases. Cynthia loves to dress in men's clothes, and she's kind of a smart, educated, wants to get out into the world, but is held back by the fears of her family. She and her daughter go out to with Cynthia to a show, an exhibit that's at the Crystal Palace. And while they're there, she is approached by a woman, Lady Covington. And Lady Covington has heard about her ability to figure things out and to deduce things and to solve mysteries, so to speak. And she thinks she's being poisoned by somebody in her household, and she wants Cat to investigate or to figure out who it is. And so that starts the mystery portion. Now, Cat, as a as a person in service, cannot just go in the front door. So she has to make her way through the kitchen. And so she creates a recipe as a reason to go, and then finds out what's happening at this other home. Alongside of this, there is another kind of parallel story about Irish separatists and anarchists, and it's just, there's a lot going on, but it flows well, and it's all well done and very smart, and the characters are fantastic. This is a series I really, really enjoy. So if you are interested in any of those things, you can rarely go wrong with this series. So that's what I read, a lot of stuff. Let me talk about what I'm currently reading. I need to get back to Proust. I have not spent time with Marcel. Need to get back. This is volume 3, The Guermantes Way. It's the 3rd volume of the In Search of Lost Time series. Then I am in the final throes of Night and Day by Virginia Woolf. I'll be putting together my vlog for the first book, The Voyage Out, this weekend. I have it on my list. And then continuing vlogging about this one. I'm reading this with Elizabeth of Bookish North. She's phenomenal. And oh my God, do we have so much to talk about with this. So much to talk about. Also need to be spending more time with this. This is Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. Gorgeous cover. Reading that for my In Real Life book club, and we're going to be talking about it tomorrow. And then let's talk about books that I could be reading, because I have a lot of things. You saw my huge list of books that I just found last weekend when I started to hit the used bookstores that are starting to open. First thing up that I know I have to read, Leo and I are going to be reading the next in our series. This is Fraud by Anita Brookner. Look at that ominous cover, almost like a noirish. So excited to see if she ventures into mystery. We'll see. This might be something that I want to pick up. I have had this for a while. This is The Parisians by Isabella Hammad. And this, I know this is a Palestinian story, and also has in France. So there's France and Palestine, and I think, 1914. So historical, two areas that I'm interested in, so that I might try to pick this up. And then when I posted this one, Leo reached out and said it had Helene Hanff vibes. 84 Charing Cross Road, my favorite book. So I might have to prioritize this up the list. This is Meet Me at the Museum by Anne Youngson. So that's looking good. And then I got something from my library, A Necessary Evil by Abir Mukherjee. I raved about the first of this series last week when I finished it. So I think I might actually crack this one. We'll see about the others, but this and Fraud, I bet will show up next week. You'll have to come back and check. So other than that, that's all I have to talk about today. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for coming. And again, we are still in a global pandemic. So even if you're vaccinated, please maintain safe social distance, wear a mask to protect yourself and protect others when in close proximity with others. Wash your hands and do not touch your face. That's it from me for now. Thank you. Bye.